Okay, guys. Hello, everyone. It's your host, Caroline Susko, and welcome back to On the Bright Side. Today, I want this episode to be not fully planned out and kind of just go with the flow today because that's how I'm feeling. So I might be a little all over the place this episode, so just bear with me, but I promise all good things are coming. For this episode today, I want to talk about obstacles and signs in life. I think it's very important that we realize these hardships and why they're happening, or we realize the signs we're seeing and the meaning behind them. I am so out of breath for some reason. I have no idea why. So just bear with that too. This is an episode of bearing with me. Anyways, so before we get started, I have to explain where I'm at. So let's just say today has not been the best day in the book. I've been very stressed out. And as a college student, I'm trying to balance so much being a junior. And I'm trying to balance this podcast and giving you guys the content that you want. And there was this episode I was recording, editing for such a long time, and it got deleted. So I tried again, and it got deleted again. And I was just like, oh my gosh. It was about sorority life and living in the sorority house and all of that. And let me tell you, I was so frustrated. I don't cry about much. And that, I hadn't cried in such a long time, and that one had me crying. I was like, no, I worked 20 hours on this. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about when you write a huge paper or anything, and then it just deletes all at once, and you literally have no words. Your eyes just go big, and you're like, there's no way. There is no way. And that was my reaction in a nutshell. Oh my gosh, I was so pissed off over it. And then I stepped back from the mic and went on a drive because I was like, get out of this space right now because it's not doing you well. And I was driving in the car, and then I realized that in retrospect, this is such a simple problem. Thank gosh it's not a bigger problem, and thank gosh this is my bigger problem. It was honestly a reality check that I needed. I was like Kim K in this situation where she loses her earring in the ocean and it's like, oh my gosh, my diamond earring. That was literally me. I was like, oh my gosh, my podcast I worked on 25 hours for is gone. And yes, of course, I'm not invalidating any feelings. These feelings are valid. It sucks. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. But I had a little perspective switch and was like, hey, on the bright side, this is your biggest problem right now. This is your biggest problem that you're upset over right now. And in retrospect, people would kill to have this problem. And then I was like, I'm going to make a podcast episode out of this because the amount of people that feel this and go through this is so many of us. And I think it's a great podcast app to work with. So before we get into this episode, it's so important to realize what we're grateful for, to know what we're grateful for, especially on days like these, especially on the days that not everything's going perfect. Life's not the way you want it. We have to realize and say, hey, I'm grateful for this and I'm so thankful for this and I wouldn't be here without that. Because I promise you, once you start looking on that bright side and focusing on grateful things, life just gets a little more sunnier and a little more happier. And before I get into my grateful thing, I know we talked about the grateful list and how I write 3 things every day I'm grateful for and how you guys should do it because it helps so much just to ground you and to be thankful for what you have. And on days when you're not having the best day, go get a journal and write those grateful things. I promise your mindset will just switch in a second. You'll be like, oh, today's actually a great day because A, B, and C. And although this happened, look at all the good things that came out of today. So today, I am grateful for my mom. My mom is my other half. She means the world to me. She does so much for me and my sisters. And she has been my momager, we'll call her. She's been my momager through all of this. She has been my backbone to this podcast and has helped me behind the scenes and everywhere in between, trying to help me make my dreams come true. Because my dream is to get this podcast up and going and to be helping people and to ultimately make a career out of it because it's something I truly love to do and it's something I want to do. So I'm very thankful for my mom and all she does for me. So thank you, Mom, because I know you're listening because you're my biggest fan. Thank you, Mom. I love you. So today we're going to talk, timeout. And my mom is my biggest pusher. So when I say pusher, I mean she pushes me to do the best I can, even when there's times I don't think I can do it. Going to school. I didn't want to go. I was at my breaking point. And she goes, Caroline, you can do this. She pushed me to be where I am. And today I'm so happy being at the school. And I wouldn't have been there without her. This podcast, she's helped me so much. Everything you can possibly think of, she's there for me. Okay, Miss Emotional over here. Anyway, this has a point, even though I would shout my mom out any day of the week. But that's kind of what I want to talk about today. First, I want to talk about obstacles and hardships. So obstacles happen to everyone in life. And then some days it feels like all these obstacles are adding up and you're like, oh my gosh, can another thing bad happen today? And let me tell you, that is what I felt like all last week. It was just little thing after little thing, snowballing. And I was like, I need to go home. I'm done for the weekend. I need to regroup. I need to get into a better mindset. And it helped me so much just to go home and be like, hello, Saratoga, I'm back. I just like to check in to make sure the town is still running without me. I'm not even joking. I love to just go home and be like, okay, this all looks the same. Hey, family. Hey, friends. You're all doing good? Okay, I can go back. And that's usually just the thing I need to switch my mindset around and to go back on a totally different note, feeling refreshed, feeling happy, and all that. And that's the same way you have to look at it with the problems that happen. So when my podcast deleted last week, as I took a step back and am thinking about it now, it's not really a big deal. And I'm glad that this was the biggest problem I had today, because a lot of people would be lucky to have this problem today versus something else they're going through. So that's one way to look at it. When something goes wrong or when a problem appears, be grateful that if it's a small problem, that's your biggest problem. And then once you get thinking and you're in a mindset to actually reflect and think about it, it allows you to think like, oh, maybe that did happen for a reason and maybe that was meant to be. So I think that was my meant to be of today. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to take it in, but I think it was in a way meant to be because it low-key gave me a reality check. And I seem to have needed one because later that day, I was on the phone with one of my friends and I was upset and I was calling her and I was like, this podcast, there's been a lot to it. And I was like, it just sucks because I've worked so hard on this episode that I wanted to deliver to you guys. And then she was like, Caroline, this is just like a book. Authors write chapters and it gets thrown out because it doesn't make sense in the book. But then they write another chapter and it just makes the book so much better. And honestly, life is like a book in the ways that, you have some good chapters, you have some good rides, but then you have some chapters that need a little fixing or just need to be scrapped to help you get to something bigger later. Time out. Can we just take a second to realize how literally poetic my friend was giving me this advice? Like, I bet you're listening and you're like, Caroline, no one said that to you. But like, I swear she actually said that to me. I love her. Get you a friend like Julia. Julia, shout out. She makes anything sound good like that, and I wish I could do the same. Okay, anyways, here I am getting sidetracked again, but I decided that with my episode getting deleted, I would make a new episode about it and make a new chapter. And that's why I want it to be raw. There's no discussion guide for this. This is just me talking from the heart. And I feel like we have to appreciate these obstacles sometimes because sometimes we don't realize actually how good they are for us and how they change the direction of our life. Because if you think back to a hardship, and so if I think back to school, I had a rough time, but it allowed me to meet the genuine friends I have. It allowed me to grow as a person and be stronger. And it's made me into such a stronger person. And that was a very hard obstacle for me to go through, especially by myself, because usually my mom's right beside me, but this time my mom wasn't. And it was good for me to be like, oh, I got to do this on my own. And it was a life lesson. And I think that's what we have to stop and realize, that these obstacles, they suck, but they bring you to so many bigger and better things and continue to open doors and close doors that weren't meant to be opened. So if you stop for a minute and think of an obstacle or something, then think about it on the other side and be like, oh, well, this wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen. And again, I can say it with my first episode. My first episode got deleted and I made a new one, went back and did it, and it was so much better and I loved it so much more, and it was more from the heart and more me. So, it sucks at the moment, but you look back and you're like, oh, thank you. Like, thank you. Thank God that happened. And even in this episode I just recorded, actually, I was talking about how everything happens for a reason in so many different ways. So at school, I was on campus housing, and it didn't end up working out, and I had to live in the sorority house. And I remember being so upset. I was emailing the people. I was like, this is so not fair. We got the worst time slot. We've been here a long time. Anyway. And I had to live in the sorority house, and the sorority house actually is what kept me at UNH. It's what helped me find more of my people. It's what helped me make UNH feel like a home. And if that didn't happen, I can't imagine where I would be today. So I'm thankful that whoever took that last housing took that one, because it opened me and brought me to a whole new path. And obviously this was a little problem compared to other things people go through. But even when you think about your biggest hardship, like, would you be where you are today if that didn't happen? Like, would you be the strong person you are now if that didn't happen? Would you have learned the skills that you did if it didn't happen? Like, if you were to get cheated on with someone, where are you now? You probably are like, thank gosh. At a point, these things look like they're the end of the world. But then we come back and we're like, oh, this happened for that reason. This helped me to build X, Y, and Z. So like, for example, I had crippling OCD, crippling anxiety, and I'm past that now to a point where I can handle it at least. And 6th grade to like 9th grade, I had crippling OCD and anxiety and was a very bad germaphobe. I convinced myself that if I didn't get 9 hours and 20 minutes of sleep, I would throw up the next morning and be sick. And I made a connection to everything I did with being sick. So like, the night before I got the stomach bug, I was at Target. So for years, I would not step foot in Target because I thought that if I went into Target, then I would get sick. And that's why I followed all these things I made up in my head so closely, because I was petrified of getting sick, and my mind made me think all this stuff and built up such a big fear of being sick. And after years of a therapy and going through all this stuff and trying to get my life back, I got my life back because I put in that work and I did it. And now I look back and I'm like, thank gosh I went through that journey. Like, that journey was crippling and it was hard, but I learned so much on the other side. And I can help and relate to so many people now because those hardships allowed me to create meaning in those experiences and setback, and understand those setbacks and understand myself to create a better version of myself. And it gave me strength to go on. And that gave me so many of the characteristics I had today. Like, I definitely learned empathy the most through anxiety and having it, because people couldn't understand the inside of my brain. People couldn't understand what was going on with me. And when they just saw me, they thought I was a wreck. But there was so much more going on in my head. And from that day forward, I always try to understand someone else's point of view and understand what they're going through, because I sure wish people could have understood my brain when they thought I was crazy, because I couldn't help the thoughts in my brain. So I can thank anxiety for who I am today, because without it, I would not be me. And when we go through these things, we tend to look at them as failure and look at them in a negative light. Like, when I failed, I looked at it like I was on the wrong path doing the wrong thing, because that's what I thought in the car today. I was like, should I be doing this podcast? Like, all these things deleting just seems like it's my sign to move forward and do something else. But then I realized these learning experiences can also put me on the right path. They can help me to have a better podcast, to have a better episode, to have more heart-to-heart conversations with you guys. And I think we forget to realize sometimes that life isn't perfect, and we know that. Life isn't perfect. But if you think about it, there's still a lot of things going well in your life. And, just count all your blessings, because some things we see as hardships are something people are yearning for. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, if we're stressed about school or something, there could be kids out there who really wanted to go to school and couldn't afford the education. Like, there's always another side to it that you have to think about. And what I also think people need to think about are the signs that are given to you every day by the universe and by people around you and people trying to communicate with you through these signs. So personally, my sign is a blue jay. I've had no relationship to blue jay. I don't know. I really don't know where it came from. I don't know why it was a blue jay, but it is. And so the story behind the blue jay is I was driving to school. I had just come home. I was very upset, and I came home and was making the decision if I go back or transfer. And me and my parents sat around the table, and I was like, let me give it one more try, and drove back up. And on the way back, I was up in the mountains, and it was the fall. So it was very cold, and I'm driving. Right in front of my windshield flies a super bright blue jay, and it caught my attention. I just don't see blue jays. It's not something I normally see. It was so beautiful, so blue, so bright. I Googled it after because I was like, this is crazy. And at first it said blue jays times are in the spring. So I wasn't even supposed to see one in the fall. Like, it was very rare that I was seeing it where I was seeing it and at the time of year I was seeing it. And then it also meant that you're going in the right direction and angels are watching over you. And that one makes me so happy to this day because I felt so lost. I had no idea what I was doing. I felt so alone. I felt like no one understood. And that bluebird helped me to realize that that was the sign I needed, that everything was going to be okay. And then when I started this podcast, I was riding in this parking lot overlooking the water. And I was having some block. I didn't know how to get an episode to you guys and how to relate it to you guys. And then a blue jay flies across my window again. I thought about the meeting, and it was like, angels are watching over you. You're in the right path. You're doing the right thing. And I wrote that down that day, and I was like, Caroline, if you're having a tough day, remember that blue jay. Remember when you were at your low, that blue jay flew by every time and told you you were on the right path with that sign. And then again, when I was having a day with my grandparents, we were having a wonderful time, and it was very in the moment. I wasn't on my phone. We were just on a walk, another blue jay. And I've seen 3 in my life, and they've all had a very significant meaning. So I like to say that the blue jay is my sign. And I think it's important that we see these signs and we have these signs because they help you to know that you're doing okay and you're not alone. That's how I like to see it because, there's some days where you really do feel alone and you feel like you're on the wrong path or you feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then these little signs just appear. And whether it's people in these signs or words in these signs, there's so many different signs. And I feel like these signs are there for a reason to tell us something and to tell us that we're going to be okay and that we're being watched over. So I asked you guys if you guys saw signs and to share them with me and to share the story behind your sign because I think it's really cool to listen to other people's signs and see what it brings to them. Because after I saw the blue jay, I was like, oh, I wonder what other people's are. And I thought this could be a really cool way to do this. So the first person said they were having a hard time in their love life. And she didn't have a great past with the men in her life and the relationships she had with them. So when this guy came into her life, of course, it was very hard for her to put down those walls and be able to be friends with this guy or just talk to him because of her past again. And she just kept seeing this guy around. They found more and more common interests. And she was like, okay, what's going on? So that day she said out loud, send me a sign if this guy's meant to be. I don't know who he is. I don't know why he keeps appearing in my life. If this is meant to be, send orange butterflies. Send me a sign that I can feel safe in this relationship. I can feel okay and that I can trust him. Okay, get ready for this because when I read this, my jaw dropped and I got so many chills. 5 minutes later, she goes out on her window. She is on the 7th floor and a huge flock of butterflies, orange monarch butterflies, are flying outside. and they don't come. This is the 7th floor. Butterflies like do not fly that high. And she starts screaming, and her roommate was like, what? And she's like, that's my sign. Like, I just asked for the sign 5 minutes ago, and I know, like, I'm on the right path now. I know this is what I should be doing. And it just gives me chills because it's so nice to have a sign and to be just heard by someone other than yourself, and to know that it's just like the universe talking to you and saying like everything's going to be okay. And then, of course, me being the curious girl I am, I had to ask because I put this question out months ago. So when I was actually recording this, it was months later, and I had to see how it was going. And I texted her, and she was having the best relationship she's ever had, approaching 1 year, and it was just everything she wanted and more. And I also remember hearing her talk about how healthy the relationship was, which is also so important. So it's just amazing something came from those orange little butterflies, and I tend to believe that signs are out there for a reason. So before I read the next one, I just want to say thank you to the people that shared their signs and their stories, because I get it that some are hard to share and some are personal, but to be able to hear these signs from other people is amazing, and it really can just help others as well. So thank you so much. This next one really got to me. So to the person who sent this in to me, I'm glad you have those signs, and I'm glad you're seeing them. So let me just read her DM. I see 222 and 444 all the time. Not even just those, like I see all combinations of 2s and 4s all day, every day. I noticed it a couple weeks before my mom passed away and didn't think much of it. Then when my mom passed, she passed away on April 2nd, which is 4222 as the date. And I swear ever since then, I see those numbers everywhere, like repeating 4s and 2s or combinations of them, and it's insane. And 444 is the angel number for protection, and 222 is the meaning that you're at the right place at the right time. I know angel numbers are trending right now, and everything you can interpret so many different ways, but I know that this is a constant sign of my mom watching me, because she was always so into the numbers, and my mom always saw 1111, which now I'm realizing equals 4, but it's not even the angel numbers. It's because I know how much she believed in the universe, and I see signs of her daily telling me that I'm okay and it's going to be okay. And then she looked up the meaning of the 444s and the 222s, and it basically said that the 2 and 4 combination is a sign that everything will be taken care of, you're not alone, and the angels and people in heaven are watching you, which is absolutely insane. Like, just think about that. Think about that for a second. Wow. And just to know that your mom is with you is so special, and to have that sign is incredible. So now more of the responses I got were just signs they see. So one person said, dreams of loved ones who I miss reminding me of their voice and face. And I think that's a big one, because sometimes life goes so quick, we forget about memories and times with people and our loved ones. And we just need to take a minute and remember. And sometimes it happens in our dreams where we're like, oh my gosh, I forgot that even happened. And just for them to be with you in a way, even if it's through a dream, like, you know, they're still there and they're still watching over you. Like, I believe when messages are in dreams, I feel like it's that person trying to tell you something. I don't know. It's not always like that, but for a lot of the times when someone who's passed away are in my dreams, I always just think they're watching over me extra that day. And so the next one was, I haven't heard this one, but it says finding a dime on the ground is someone who has passed is trying to tell you something. But I went to go Google it after, and it said that it's someone trying to help you make a decision or tell them that you're with them. And then it says that finding a dime can mean your loved one isn't as distant as you thought. And I feel like that's a lot of these signs, like people who have passed away are trying to talk to us through signs and talk to us through different things on earth. Because a lot of the other messages I got about this were signs of their loved ones after they had passed. Like one person said, the day my grandma passed away, a butterfly landed on my nose just 2 hours later. Like, how you have to think that's your grandma. Like, how could you not think that's your grandma? It's such a sign. And then there was one, snowflakes on Christmas, which was my grandma's favorite holiday, who passed away. So they saw her as snowflakes. And I feel like that's the idea behind signs, because some days we do feel alone and we feel like nothing's working out. And then there's just these signs that come into place and we're like, oh, like, you know, we're being watched over and that this is all part of a bigger plan. And I wanted to bring in your stories about the signs you see in your day-to-day life and the meaning behind them, because sometimes when we go through hardships or struggles, we tend to just notice the worst of the situation and then just completely ignore the rest of the picture, because in life, it's easier to do. Like for my anxiety, it was easier to say, poor me? Why am I the one being made fun of? Why is my brain telling me I can't do this? Yeah, it was easier to count the things that went wrong than the things that went right. And that's really with any obstacle or situation, no matter what it is. But just because it may be easier doesn't always mean it's what you should be doing. And I wanted to point out these little positive signs people saw on some of their harder days and how it helped them to discover that they were on the right path, and that even though it was hard, it's the path they were meant to be on, and it's all going to be okay. And they found these signs through seeking positivity, because when these signs come, you can choose to ignore them and see them as an everyday part of your life, or you can realize the sign's significance and how special it is. And when you think about it, the people that are being negative with their situation don't usually see these signs because they're just so consumed with the negative. There's people who are looking on the bright side of a hardship and getting these little signs along the way and having people with them to help them get into a greater state. But then there are the people who choose to find the bright side of a tough situation and see these special signs that help them get back on track to a good place, because they know they're not alone and they know life's not happening to them. So I don't know if you guys remember, in one of my first episodes, I was talking about the quote that life happens for us and not to us. Because everything that we go through and everything we see and do are for us. It's not the world going against us. It's for us to learn something out of it and to build character and build the person we are and find the person we are through these hardships. Because think about it, where did you learn some of the biggest things about yourself? From a hardship. You learn them from a hardship. And if you didn't go through that hardship, you wouldn't have been the person you are today. And you never would have learned how to deal with that emotion or deal with that pain or frustration. Because when you think back to how you've grown as a person, it's from the hardships you faced or the challenges you took on, because you've accepted those hardships as a stepping stone to success. Wow, say that 3 times, holy. And these hardships that turn out to help you grow can also come in the form of people. Like, think of all the people you've met in your life. Think of everyone. Now, there's good people in your life that help you make the most of your life, that help you see the world so much brighter and create so much fun memories and all that. And then there's the people that hurt you in your life, the people that were mean to you. And you can thank them because they taught you what you deserve and helped you to realize what you don't. And without them, you wouldn't have known. So for me, when I'm behind this mic, not only do I thank the people who have been my best friends, who have lifted me up every day, but I also thank the people that hurt me, that made me want to get behind this microphone and show how important it is to stay positive and how important it is to be happy and spread happiness and be good to others. And so I want to end this episode saying that everything happens for a reason. Everything that you go through is for a reason. Every hardship you go through is for a reason. All the people that are introduced to you in your lifetime are for a reason. They either helped you or you either helped them, and there was a reason behind that. And on my Pinterest, there was a quote I kept, and it was by Marilyn Monroe, and it said, "I believe that everything happens for a reason. People change so that you can learn to let go. Things go wrong so that you can appreciate them when they're right. You believe lies so you eventually learn to trust no one but yourself. And sometimes good things fall apart so better things can fall together." Now take a minute and let that soak in. Because when you think about it, the people that changed from the person you thought they were helped you to learn the lesson of how important it is to let go of something that's not good for you so you can open the doors to new opportunities that allow you to flourish and grow as a person and be surrounded by wonderful, amazing people who want the best for you. And things go wrong in life, so you can learn to appreciate the little things, like you can appreciate having a bed, having a house to wake up to, having a school and education to learn from. And then finally, learning that good things fall apart so better things can fall together. And so you can learn the real definition of a good thing, because everything happens for a reason, whether it's the people you meet, the places you go, or the things you do. Everything happens for a reason. And through all this, you learn to trust the process of life and everything that happens in it. So the next time a hardship comes or an obstacle happens that you have to face, think of, what am I going to get to learn from this? Because there's always something you're learning with these. Wow. I came to this mic tonight wanting to just talk out my life, because sometimes it's easier just talking through the mic. But I hope that helped you guys as much as it helped me. And I hope you guys can start realizing how many things you can look on the bright side from. And that's just one of them. So with that, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. And I will see you next week. But in the meantime, stay looking on the bright side, and it will serve you really well. Love you guys. Bye.